Namadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha Om Shanti 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 Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we ended a little bit, speaking a little bit about the various koshas, and I also made some comments that were meant to orient you on how to consider the koshas. And when you're studying and you're trying to correlate this with something that you can read, you have to go back and forth between Anandavalli and Brahmanandavalli and Bhriguvalli. So, we had these concepts of Puranat Purushaha, the one that gets filled up is Purusha, and Atti iti Atma, the one that consumes is Atma, and the same Adhyuti, At Dhatu is used for Annam also, the one that is consumed is called Annam. So there are many ways to think about the koshas, and one way is that each kosha is permeated or filled by the next deeper kosha. And so when you start looking at any kosha and start seeing it carefully, you begin to see what it is being permeated by, and therefore start focusing on the permeator, which means you're going deeper inside. So just like Bhrigu, a first reaction is to mistake Annamaya for the Atma. But then you realize that there is something deeper that permeates the Annamaya, and this is called the Pranamaya. And then perhaps you think maybe Pranamaya is the Atma, and so on. So another way to think of kosha is each kosha is a locus for a mistaken self-identity. It's a different place where a mistake can happen. Mistake can happen at deeper and deeper levels. Not just one mistake, but it's a series of mistakes which Bhrigu made so that we could all understand. And every time he was asked to go back and reuse the master key, which was Tapasa Brahma Vijijnasasva. And he would unlock the secret at a deeper level. So the Upanishad uses the bodily features to delineate each level using words. For the Annamaya, it uses Ayam and Idam to indicate the Pratyaksha nature of Annamaya. So it says, look, want to see the Annamaya Purusha? Then here is the head, here is the right side, here is the left side, here is the torso, and here is the tail, Pucham. Then similarly, go deeper into the Pranamaya. It now has used this analogy of physical location, head, torso, tail, right, left, places Prana, Vyana, Apana, Akasha, and Prithvi as the places, similar tail, head, right, left, etc. Similarly, when it comes to Manomaya, which we mentioned a little bit last time, always remember, Atti iti Atma, Manomaya is a consumer. What does it consume? It has to consume the previous kosha. So it consume the annam of the sensory inputs provided by the functionality and the physicality of the sense organs. The functionality of the sense organs being in the Pranamaya kosha, and the physicality of the sense organs being in the Annamaya kosha. Consuming this purified prana, purified by pranayama, the Manomaya can awaken the Veda that is already present within it. Tasya yajureva shiraha, rig takshina paksha, sama uttara paksha, etc. So there, Rig Veda is the head, right hand side is, Yajurveda is the head, Rig Veda is the right side, Sama is the left side, etc. Sorry, the other way around. Rig is the left side and Sama is the right side, etc. So, using the knowledge of Manomaya as Anna, the Nischayatma Buddhi in the Vijnanamaya awakens its own features of yoga and intuition, because for the Vijnanamaya, Shraddha is the Shira, and Satyam and Ritam are the sides, and yoga is the torso. So like this, there are things that are laid out in the Upanishad, and I'm going through it rather fast, I understand. So it is meant to indicate that perhaps you should read the Upanishad. Um, Deeper than this is the Anandamaya, which we're discussing at the end of that. Priya, Moda, and Pramoda are mentioned as the various aspects in which we experience ourselves pleasure at various ways during transactions. Now, the pleasurable experiences we have are reflected internally at various levels of the Anandamaya when presented to it by the Buddhi, which itself has inputs from the Manomaya, which in turn are gathered from the inputs of the Annamaya and the Pranamaya. So there is a cascading set in this koshas. Now, these pleasures we experience while transacting, when we are in deep sleep also, we experience a deep peace and joy that has no cause or purpose. How do you know? How do you know that you experience this deep sleep? Because when you wake somebody up and say, what? He says, I don't know anything. I slept nicely. Sukham aswapsam. I slept. Beautiful sleep I had. Who told you that? Who's saying that they had somebody was there who can experience that great peace and joy of the Sukham Aswapsam? Why can't we experience every pleasurable moment in our life in the same way without any calculation, without any cause or purpose? What's the reason for that? The reason is the desire for sensory pleasures and kama, krodha, moha, lobha generated by such desires becomes obstacles for us to experience the world at the level of the Anandamaya Kosha. And the relieving of those obstacles is the only way. It can only be done at the deepest spiritual levels. Now this kama, krodha, lobha, etc. have to do typically with a life that is centered upon artha as the parama purushartha. Artha means money or wealth or something like that. So in this context, it's a story of a householder who has worked very hard in his whole life to build a lovely business, and he's made a lot of money, and he became old. He left the business and all its profits to his sons, and he wanted to stay in his room and be engrossed in bhajana and swadhyaya and puja and live his life in a different way. But as he took that decision, slowly he began to notice that everybody was ignoring him in the house. Forget about talking to him lovingly, even his basic necessities were not catered to. So he was in rather pathetic state. So one day a Mahatma came who knew him well and saw him in this sad state and wanted to do something about it, wanted to find a solution. So he said, I've got a good solution for you, let me do something. So accordingly, next day, morning, two strong men knocked on the door of the house announcing delivery for the old Sethji, UPS, and they bought a heavy trunk and they took the heavy trunk to the Sethji's room, which was in some dilapidated corner of the house, left it there and they departed. Moment this happened, all the sons are very curious. Usme kya hai? What is in that box? What is happening? What's going on over here? So the next day the Mahatma came, he said, Lala doesn't want to talk about it, but fact is Lala has been accumulating his savings for a long time and he left them all with me in the ashram for dharmic work. Now the guy is getting close to the end of his life. He wants to do something different with it. I don't know. He wants me to return it, so I've returned it all to him. When he said this, there was total panic in the house. And everybody went to Lala's room together and said, what is happening? Why did they return this money to you now? So Lala said, look, I'm getting old. So I'm contemplating, maybe I'll go to Haridwar and I'm going to build a big dharmashala there and I'm going to serve the people, do punya, do lots of bhojan for all these people. I don't know if you've gone to Haridwar. You can get tasty free food 24/7 over there. So on hearing this, one son started crying and the other one fainted on the spot. And they all started saying, how can you do this? We can't live without you. We're going to lose the opportunity to serve you. Why do you have to do dharmic work in Haridwar? You can do it right here in our own house. What's the problem? And then they told the Mahatma, you please explain to this guy. So the Mahatma also explained to him, explained to the old man, explained to the children. And the very next day, Lala was moved to a much nicer room. All good arrangements were made, good food, everything. Sevak was organized. And regular satsangs were happening in this room. Lala was happy, kids were happy, everybody was happy. Couple of years later, Lala passed away. First thing they did was they went to the trunk. Opened the trunk, there was only bricks and stones, there was nothing in that. So the family or the society that is built on the basis of artha as the main purushartha, inevitable consequence is total destruction of that situation. There is no priya, there is no moda, there is no reflections of anandamaya when every action is motivated by a potential of material gain. So everything is infected by fear and destroyed hopes, and there's no chance of any ananda. So the elevated life is one in which every action is meaningful in and of itself. And this can only happen when we are able to experience that every action is an expression of the Atma that is deep within us, which in Taittiriya Upanishad, in Panchakosha is said, Brahma Pucham Pratishtham, in which there is no differentiation, nor variation, nor any of the faults you notice in yourself. So those of you who are Bhagavad Gita students might be reminded of this uncalculated purity within, which is accessible to some people and not accessible to some. In that uncalculated purity, everybody and everything is our own. Nirdosham hi samam brahma tasmad brahmani te stita. That nirdosham, no faults, samam, no variation. That is the at the depth of the truth of ourselves. So in this way, through the Vedantic inquiry and guided by the Brahmanishta Guru, we are pointed towards the fact that the Jagat Karana, from which entire creation is born, in which it lives and in which it resolves, is actually within ourselves. And that inquiry takes us through Annamaya, through Pranamaya, through Manomaya, all the way to Ahankara. And at Ahankara, there is a limiting boundary after which you cannot go. Upanishad says, Sa Kashtha Sa Paragatihi. The limit of all negations, after crossing over many things and crossing over everything, you get to the place after which there is no gati. Yat gatva na nivartante taddama paramam. So, that was what Nachiketas was told by Yama also. Ananya praukte gatirasti nasti anoraniyan anupraman. This is the Atma Tattva. Some exhibit it by being one with it, some are unable to express it. Some sit non-dually identified with the truth. Then even if there is a set of words that is able to express that state, there, in such an experience, there is no gati, because there is an unbroken space, which is a place of greatest and supreme relaxation. What is the expression possible there? Gati, by the way, for all of those of you who have some acquaintance with Sanskrit, comes from a dhatu called gam. Gam means gam dhatu. So gati, of course, if you happen to be a Hindi speaker, you think gati means movement. But in Sanskrit, gam dhatu means two different things. It can be used to indicate movement. It can be used to indicate understanding also. Avagamyate, to understand. So there is no gati, means there is no cognitive, there's no place at that, after that sa kashta sa paragatihi, that is as far as your cognitive process can go. Something that Arjuna discovered in the at the real end of the Bhagavad Gita. If you look at Bhagavad Gita, the conceptions of Arjuna in the volitional, the emotional, and the intellectual or the cognitive aspects that allow everybody to think, I do, I feel, and I know. For those who are doing, they might think, I know is the highest thing. Arjuna has to, in the Gita, has to go past all three of them. I don't do, I don't feel, I don't know. That, beyond that, what is there? No, doing, knowing, and feeling cannot reach it. So this is the Atma Tattva. And for this great deity of Atma Tattva, the body is the temple. So when we think about this, so another good practical use of Panchakosha Viveka is that when you think about it all the time and then use the body, every action becomes a sadhana. Certainly, you can't run away from the body since every experience and interaction of the world only happens to the body. So they say, Deho Devalaya Prokta. It means this is the Devalaya. So suppose it is a Devalaya, then who is the Deva? Now to know who is the Deva in that Devalaya, you can look at Mahabharata. You can ask two different characters in Mahabharata, call two different characters and ask them, hey, who's the Deva in your Devalaya? Two characters come from this side and that side. One is Yudhishthira, other is Duryodhana. You know, the beautiful thing about Yudhishthira and Duryodhana, both have Yud Dhatu in their words, in their names. So one is Yuddhe Stiraha, one knows what is the proper way of doing battle. And the other one is Duryodha. He does it everything in the wrong way. So one day, his father, in a moment of wisdom, Dhritarashtra, who asked him, why do you do all these things? Why can't you behave in a certain proper way? Duryodhana said, you don't have to tell me all that. I know everything. I know all those things that you are telling me. Janami dharmam, and I know adharmam also. I know all this. I know what is dharma. I know what is right. Janami dharmam nachame pravritti. I don't want to do that. Janami adharmam nachame nivritti. I know what is wrong. I don't want to give it up. I'm unable to give it up. So Dhritarashtra might say, what is the use of knowing? You're not studying for some exam that you have to know dharma, adharma. Unless you do the dharma and give up the adharma, you're a problem child. Duryodhana says, no, I am not a problem child. It's not my fault. You see, you said, Deva, Deho, Devalaya Prokta. I agree with that. There is that Deva. I know, I hear him all the time. He is sitting inside and talking to me. And what he is telling me is, you don't do dharma and you don't give up adharma. Constantly he is telling me this. I am just listening to him. Kenopi devena hidistitena. I do what he tells only. I don't make this up myself. I do what that person says. Now that negative voice, which Western context you might call the voice of the devil, is the voice of all our negative samskaras and well-fed desires that is speaking. And this anatma papatma is what Duryodhana is thinking is the atma devatma. So he is saying deho devalaya prokta. Yes, I know. I hear that deva all the time. So in the body there is life. And so in the body, the jiva has to be there, because without the jiva, how can the body be jivita? But don't mistake that whatever you are hearing as the jiva for atma. It is only for that is why deho devalaya prokta sa jiva kevala shivaha. That is that one, not the jiva that is wrapped up and presented in the wrapper of all your raga dvesha. That is your ahankara that is speaking to you. That is not the one for which this body is a mandira. For the one for whom the body is Devalaya is Kevala Shiva. Kevala means pure and unadulterated, unsullied by the variance and the impermanence of Trigunatmika Maya. It is that pure, uncovered identity we are searching for. I don't know how many North Indians and South Indians are there in this webinar, but in South we have very particular temples, like places like Srirangam, Madurai, Rameshwaram and all. North you don't have such temples. South they have got many courtyards, prakaras, one by one you have to go in. Sometimes first 2-3 courtyards you can go by the car also if you have the right pass. You can go by the car, and they'll have some shops selling flowers, puja saman, maybe some marketplace selling pictures of deities, etc. But when you come to the slightly closer ones, you have to get off the car. Eventually you have to take off your shoes also. Then in the inner parikrama, you will have the Anga Devata, etc. And there the main temple courtyards commence, Deva Darshan commences. Then you go to the Garbhagriha, and then you will there, if you are wearing a shirt or a banyan, they will say you remove that, or you go bare chested, or you wear Anga Vastram, one of these upper cloths, etc. There is a Shastriya reason for this. You have to be naked in front of God. It's a Vedantic principle. In so much as you can let yourself go, you will be able to find yourself. This is not some made up paradox, because the you that you're letting go of is different from the you are going to find, but you only know the you that you're going to letting go of. So you let go of that. This is the secret of Panchakoshas as locus of mistake. You have to let go. You have to learn. Now, if you don't know what is the Panchakosha, how will you let go of the Panchakosha? So the Panchakosha thing is developed very carefully, not so that that can become our Deva, but so that you can know how to let go of each of those koshas. But what we are doing actually in the way we live our life, we are strengthening ourselves, strengthening each of the koshas, and that is a destruction. Why is it destruction? Because the more you strengthen the koshas, the further and further you go away from Atma and closer to Ahankara with all its Papa Punya, which is the one that is sitting there and whispering to Duryodhana, don't do Dharma and don't stop doing Adharma. So the Panchakosha layers are like a treasure chest for keeping a big treasure. And we have to open that. Remember, Tapasa, Brahma, Vijignyasasva, we have to open it. So you have to make them more dhila. You have to make them looser in order to go past them. But if your whole behavior is to strengthen them, then you are doing exactly the opposite of going closer to yourself. That is why they say if you over strengthen your koshas, you are getting further from yourself. Like it happens in a banana tree, you know. Udyat udgatam, udyat udghatyaikam ekam, yathaiva kadali taroho, valkalani tataf paschat, labate saramuttam. You see, that kadali phala, that kadali tree, its bark, it's a very moist bark. You can't use it to light a fire. It's full of water. But you have to take that bark, you open it nicely. Inside that, you will find that white vayatanda you'll find. And that you can make to make tasty food. So, like that, even for us, outside is of less use. The Sara is inside. The peeling of the things is the Nama Rupa, and inside is the Tattva. Now, you can't get to this easily. Imagine if you had a temple in the Garbhagriha and you could drive all the way to the Garbhagriha. It will become like a drive-in temple. Then it will not really be a temple anymore. It will be like an entertainment, some amusement place. So to see Garbhagriha, you have to get off the car. You have to take the trouble to take off your shoes, take off your clothes and go. Without trouble, love is meaningless. In fact, love can't exist without trouble. There is a saying that you can't love a person just like that. You have to first have admiration, appreciation, trust, and then only comes love. So this notion of love at first sight is a very extreme concept. Maybe it happens sometimes. You know, when Rama saw Sita, some great Purusha like Rama, who has such a pure antakarana that never makes a mistake, then he knew at once. But not everybody is a Rama. So for a love to develop, you need some acquaintance, you need some admiration, you need some trust. Then only you can accept that person as your own, with atmiyata. Even an ordinary person, if a relationship of love has to be established, you have to start respecting them first. That leads to friendship, and as the trust and confidence increases, then you can get the relationship of love. So even with Atma Deva, first you have to go near to him and get to know him. Now, getting to know of the Atma Deva, getting acquainted with Atma Deva Parichaya happens because of karma. And Atma Deva Prapti, to obtain the Atma Deva and accept him as your own, happens due to jnana. This is the Vedantic principle that says without entering into karma, you can't go to jnana. Forget about examples like Vamadeva, Shukadeva, Ramana Maharishi and all. Even them, you see the way they do karma so beautifully, you recognize that they should have done a lot of karma somewhere before. But they are only the exceptions that prove the rule that karma is needed, and we must do karma only with the objective that we want to make parichaya of the Atma Deva. It is very important that you understand this clearly as an Upanishadic principle as you begin to read the Upanishad. It is one of Shankara's main points that he keeps on hammering again and again and again. Jnana karma yoho virodham parvatavat akampya. The mutual contradiction of jnana and karma is undeniable and unshakable, like a big mountain that can't be moved. Now, hearing this, people get very disturbed and say the Shankara had want nothing to do with society at all. How is it possible to be without doing karma? On the one hand, he says for Jivan Mukti and life, the only sadhana is karma. On the other hand, he's saying karma is completely incompatible with jnana. And then he's saying jnana devatu kaivalyam. How can you do all these things? How can you live with jnana alone? So you have to understand these things carefully, otherwise you risk getting confused forever actually. So, kashaye karmabhi pakve tato jnanam prajayate. Through karma, kashaya, the way we are, it gets cooked and ripened. The kashaya is what is inside us. Inside us, there is an immaturity, a factor that blocks jnana, an insurmountability that has to be cooked and ripened. Cooked and ripened how? Like we allow a boil or a cataract to ripen before you can use surgical instruments to remove it. That is the pakvata that is required. Similarly, people can say karma is a cause of bondage, don't do karma. If you take that approach, you will go blind. So you have to keep asking the doctor if the cataract is ripe or not. At the right moment when it's ripe, he can remove it with instruments. This idea, this way of letting something that is a problem continue and then wait for it to ripen and then remove it is a crucial idea that helps you to understand how karma and jnana sit together. So there's a beautiful indication of this whole thing in a story in the Upanishads. And I've told in the beginning of these classes, I'm almost verbatim telling what is in my Guru Swami Iswaranandagiri conveyed in these lectures, which are called by the same title as the title of this set of talks, Upanishad Alok. But I'm going to deviate slightly now because I would like to tell you the story of Kathopanishad. Because it's such a tremendously beautiful and sweet story, and every word is dripping with meaning. And as far as I'm concerned, I think they should make a movie out of it. It's so good. But they don't make movie out of Upanishads. So that's a big tragedy, because if there's one Upanishad you can make a movie out of, is Kathopanishad. So I'll at least share, let me make sure that you all know what a beautiful story it is. So to understand the story, you have to, be like, imagine like that. I'm going to tell you, you will write the script after. I'm going to help you visualize and picturize the story. There's a little boy. He must be what? 8-9 years old. Okay. A very innocent looking boy. He's got simple, wearing a white dhoti. He's brahmachari. He's sitting there. His father is a big shot. His father is Gautama. The boy's name is Nachiketas. And his father is Gautama. And his father's father is a great sage, Vajasravas. He comes from a great family. And the father has lived an illustrious life. And now the father wants to perform the greatest sacrifice of all. It is called the Vishwajit sacrifice. And after doing the full yajna in the Vishwajit sacrifice, the rule is you have to give away everything that you have. Every single thing that you have to give away. Now, when people realize that the great Gautama is performing Vishwajit sacrifice, halchal mach gayi, everybody find, Vishwajit sacrifice going, the kuch milega. Kuch milega is very important. So people went there because you'll get something. He's giving away everything. So there was a long line of people. All the people came saying, where is my share? One by one they came, they took the grain, they took the cattle, they got the land, the gold, rubies, ornaments, all kind of things. Days and days he kept giving. Slowly the line started petering out because how many people will come after all? They have to go to where this guy is. But the problem is, as those people petered out, he didn't have anything left also to give. But he said, Acha, you have come, I have to give you something. So he said, Are bhai, whatever is there now, let's give them. Anything, give. So all kinds of bottom of the barrel stuff started coming out of the storehouse. Stuff that you really don't want to give. So cattle, all the good cattle already gone for the first few lucky ones. So now the cattle, all the ones that are all, on their last leg, Upanishad says this cow had already dunked his last drop of water. That cow has already given his last drop of milk. It is an infirm and weak cow, but still it's part of my possession, so I'll give it. just to somehow satisfy everybody who's in this line. And that small boy was watching all these things, just 9, 10 years old, watching his father do all this. He's very impressed father, he knows the big shot. Quietly, then he asked his father, he notices this problem that kya kya de rahe hai abhi, he's not giving any good stuff anymore. So he said, he touched his father on the hip, and father said, what? He said, you are giving this, you are apparently going to do Vishuddhi's sacrifice and go to a higher world. But if you give these kind of things to people, you will probably go to some lower world only. So don't do this. Before you give such random cows and all to people, not worth giving, you decide there are so many deserving people. To whom will you give me? I'm a better position to give than all these things. Father didn't listen to him. He said, chalo, chalo, go away, go away. 3 times he asked him. 3rd time, the father got very irritated. 9-year-old, 10-year-old teaching me how to do Vishuddha sacrifice. So he said, to death I'll give you, now go away and don't bother me anymore. Now when he said that, just like when the moment Arjuna said, Shishyaste ham shadi mam prapannam, driver became a guru, instantly the son went away, father went away and became a guru Shishya. Because the son took it as an adesh of a guru. The son did not get upset. The son started wondering, oh, you're going to give me to death. What purpose will that serve for you? And why am I the gift that death deserves? I would like to know. Became a student instantly. So therefore, and clearly I have to go now to death. So I don't understand why, but my teacher has told me this. So I have to do it. This is a test and I have to come out well in this test. All this went through the boy's mind. And the father saw him and he saw that the boy has become very serious now, no longer is this child. So he said, no, don't worry. I didn't say, I just said that by mistake. No, I'm not giving you to death at all. But the son had disappeared. He became a student. He said, stop, don't say like that. He said, you are in a long line of teachers. You have Vajasravas, Gautama, you and then me. What is the parampara that has come through us? Truth and truth alone is the parampara. So now you said something, it must mean something. And it is my business to continue that truth. I can't just ignore what you said. So it doesn't matter. One father, one son, one teacher, one student will go. But the long line of truth that has been coming, that has to be unbroken. So I have to go. So the father was helpless and this boy went. He went, walked. I don't know how they show this in the movie, that he kept walking somewhere. Suddenly, somewhere where the earth meets the sky, he kept walking and now he's in a different place. And he's walking and he's thinking, my God. And he prays to his Ishta Devata. He says, see, I've done all these things. I'm going now. I'm going into the mouth of death. Now you have to protect me. Yeah, I listened to what my father said. Yeah, I think I did the right thing as a student. I'm going, but I have no idea what's going to happen next. So you have to protect me when I go to side. And the Ishta Devata, he gave him darshan. He said, wait. I'll help you. I got an idea for you. So what's the idea? Don't go now. Just go. Slow down a little bit. You have to find the right muhurta to reach the Yama's house. He says, muhurta? Why? He says, don't ask why. It's like this only. You go there. You don't go now. You go after a few days. You go slowly, you'll reach after a few days. At that time, Yama won't be there at home. That's the time you have to go, when Yama won't be there at home. And you see, you have to go there and you knock at the door. And Mrs. Yama, she is very nice. She'll ask you to come in, give you all kinds of food and all. You refuse. You say that I won't eat. And you do Bhukh Hartal, because you will not eat until you meet Yama. Because you are not given to Yama, he is your master. So you won't eat until master tells you to eat. And you see, 3 days it will take for Yama to come back. And for those 3 days, he has to pay dearly. He'll give you 3 boons. And this will be the way you will get through to Yama. So the boy said, okay, no problem. So the boy went, came, like his Ishta Devata told him, he reached the door. and no sign of Yama. They were both away somewhere collecting, people collecting the debts of death. And he showed up there, and fair enough, Mrs. Yama opened the door and said, "Please come in." First, Pada Prakshalana and all has to do. He did not move his foot. He didn't go back. He didn't move his foot. He said, "I am not coming until my master comes. I am now just a slave of my master. I am not coming into the house unless he is back." Became night. He didn't go. He is quietly standing outside there. One more day, one more night. And how are you going to tell Yama to come back home? There's no, iPhone to say, "Hey, Yama, text him quickly and say, listen, come back." But you don't have to do it, because Tapasa Brahma Janagnasasva, this tapasa of this boy, burning up the whole universe. So much so, Yama somewhere far away begins to sweat, saying, "What is this? Why am I feeling this heat? What is going on? Something is not right. Something seems actually not right in my own house." So he gets on that bull and comes thundering to his house 3 days and 3 nights. And there he is, face to face. Can you imagine Yama, and can you imagine this 9-year-old boy? And before the boy can do anything, Yama lies down. Why? Because Atiti Devo Bhava. He does Pada Prakshalana of this little boy. And he's pouring waters onto his feet. And they're looking at each other. And Yama says, "See, you are like a fire. You have come to my house, and your 3 days of wait are threatening to consume me fully. All the good things I have done, all the good punya I have got, will all go away because of this tapas of yours, and I have not been here for 3 days. So I am very sorry. Please, for each day, accept a boon, so that I am not touched by the effect of your tapas." Yama says. Before he can finish, the boy said, no, you can't bend down like this. And the boy does Sashtanga Namaskaram. He says, you are my master, I have to do pranam. But then when he gets up, he says, but since you're saying 3 boons, let me say what I want. He says, okay. Yama is looking, waiting, and the boy is waiting. But the boy is very smart. He's been thinking about this for a while. And he says, the first thing he says, my father said something unwittingly, and I'm here. And now he's there. He must be full of anger and regret of what he said. And when I go back, he'll think this guy has come back from Yamas. He must be a ghost. He won't even hug me. So you please bless me that my father, when I go back, he is able to recognize my face and not see me as a ghost, and his whole anger and regret goes away, and he's able to receive me nicely back home. So Yama laughed, because of the 2-in-1 wish. Cleverly, he is not only assured that he's going to go back, but that his father is also going to be happy. So Yama said, very good. Take it. 2-in-1 extra pooch liya, but the way you are, very smart guy. Go ahead, have it. So you don't worry, you will sleep happily with your father's house for many nights. You don't worry. Now ask the next one. So then Nachiketa thinks, doesn't need to think too long. He knows exactly what the questions he wants to ask. This is the sharpness of the boy. He says, I am told that there is this thing called, whenever we do so many havans, my father just did a huge havan, Vishwajit havan. And this fire transports the essence of all the things in the earth to heaven. And of all these fires, there's one particular fire, the Agni Havan, that leads man to heaven, where there is no fear of old age, hunger, thirst, where you cross over sorrow, for at least for a little while. What is that sacrifice? I want to know. What is that sacrifice? So Yama says, yeah, I know it. I'll tell you. So yeah, now I don't know if any of you has ever been in a yajna, or if you have been in a yajna, there'll be a main purohit who will have a pretty fat book which he's reading out of. Because the yajna are complicated things. So at that time, he couldn't take out some iPod and record and all. Yama started telling what that yajna is. And he kept telling, it took a few days for Yama to tell. Yama told the details of this yajna. And then sometimes when you're teaching something to somebody, when you're done with the teaching, you pause for a moment to see if they have any questions or any doubts. And Nachiketa said, okay, I understood what you said. Let me make sure I understood. And Nachiketa repeated every single thing that Yama had just said, fully verbatim. And Yama was so happy. Because as a great teacher, you need a great student. And you are the great student who is so great because you came to ask something, I taught you, and you fully absorbed it. So he bends down and he hugs the boy. He says, you are the kind of student I want. Forget about 3 boons. I'm giving you one extra one here, but not what you choose. I'll give you one extra one. From now on, this Havan will be called the Nachiketa's Agni. We're naming it after you. Okay. And still, even with that one extra Havan, my love is flowing so much. Here, took off the necklace of pearls from his neck and gave it to Nachiketa and said, you please keep this. This is for you also. The boy took the necklace, waited for Yama to finish. Then he gave the necklace back. So no use to be, he says. Let me ask you the 3rd boon. At that point, the Upanishad gets serious. That I'll tell you next time. So until then, suspense for next time. This is the interval in the movie of the Upanishad. Until then, I hope one day one of you can see this movie. It's a really outstanding movie. Only there in my head right now. Okay, so anybody, Venkat sir or Usha ji, we can ask questions.
What is the reason behind wearing unstitched clothes?
I don't know. I don't know I don't know the reason behind wearing unstitched clothes. Actually, I'm not qualified to answer very detailed questions on Karma Kanda. I don't know that stuff very
well. Next question is
somebody asked some questions about some of the details not being mentioned. Upanishad is very terse. It doesn't mention all these things. Some of these things are mentioned later on in the Brahmana of the Yajur Brahmana. They are not mentioned in the Upanishad itself. For instance, meeting with the Ishtadeva is not mentioned in the main Upanishad. It is mentioned later in the Brahmanas. And some of them are, stories that are told by other Mahatmas that I have heard along the way. Upanishad also makes for great drama. So, you consider, for people who ask these questions, I have one other answer. My guru once told me of, Ramayana. There's a Ramayana written, obviously, in every Chatur Yoga, there is a Rama and there is a Ramayana. And in one Chatur Yoga, Rama is ready to go to the forest and he tells Sita, don't come with me to the forest. And she says, what are you talking about? Don't come to me. Every yoga, I keep coming with you to the forest. I have to come with you. So that also is not mentioned in Ramayana. But that's the nature of stories. They are meant to reveal truths. Anything else?
What is your thought on the idea that Jnana Kanda could be anterior to the Karma Kanda?
Jnana Kanda could be?
Anterior.
Anterior. You're talking about positional. So when you talk about the Vedas, you have to be careful with positioning. You see, the Vedas were organized in certain way because, you see, after all, the Veda is not called the Veda, it is called the Shruti, which means it is not told in any order and there is no chapter number and full stop and comma and all that. It is just told. Now, Veda Vyasa organized it, the Vyavastha of the Veda, and organized it in certain way and collected certain things. And in that way, the Veda Anta could be told as, or the Veda Anta is the same as the Jnana Kanda, could be understood as the end of the Vedas, Anta, or the essence of the Vedas, which is also Anta. So I wouldn't pay too much attention to that. And especially this becomes an important thing when you start seeing things like Bhagavad Gita, where you maybe have heard things where people say, oh, comes in 3 sections. First one is Karma Kanda, second one is Bhakti Yoga, and third is, but it's not like that. There is highest knowledge taught in 2nd chapter also, and there's great karma clarification in the 18th chapter also. So these are all strands that are woven together artistically and sometimes separated out in a certain way for the purposes of convenience of study, which is what Veda Vyasa did. So I wouldn't worry so much about anterior and Karma Kanda. Hey, there is one interesting question from Srimati Subbalakshmi Sundaresham that I would like to take up. That is, should I listen to my inner voice while taking crucial decisions or not? So clearly, that's a actually very, very good question, because that is the question. You see, Duryodhana was, I mean, Duryodhana, when you start saying the word Duryodhana, I don't know, it all matters of tremendous drama, right? You have seen the TV series of Mahabharata, maybe, or you've seen the Amarcita Katha of Mahabharata. So then you imagine Duryodhana to be one kind of a nasty villain with an ill-kempt mustache and, Bradley brush teeth, always talking in a certain way, etc. But these were all people, Duryodhana and Yudhishthira all went to the Gurukula together and studied from Dronacharya and all. And Dronacharya and all is no mean teacher, I mean, they studied from the greatest teachers. They knew a lot of things. But the orientation of a sadhaka slowly helps refine and define his inner voice. And that orientation comes from whether that sattvika, moving from a tamasika nature to a rajasika nature to a sattvika nature, and always making that more and more finely tuned, more and more sophisticated, allows your inner voice to reflect more and more shastriya things and less ragadvesha things. So the world presents to you information through the Annamaya and the Pranamaya. Presents it to the Manomaya. The Manomaya weighs the pros and cons, and the Vijnanamaya, the Buddhi, is going to take a decision about what to do and what not to do. It's going to make a decision. The question is, what is that Buddhi, that inner voice or whatever you want to call it, making that decision on the basis of? If your inner voice is just your inner voice, it might well be your outer voice, because you will make decision based on your likes and dislikes. But if you are become steeped in the Shastra, then your inner voice will start making decisions on right and wrong according to Shastra. Tasmat Shastram Pramanante Karya Karya Vyavastitau. So that inner voice which has been refined to be able to be reflective of Shastra as the avalambana for making decisions, that inner voice you should listen to. That inner voice that is driven by Kama, Krodha, Raga, Dvesha, that you should not listen to. So how to listen to inner, whether you should listen depends upon, first you develop a sophisticated inner voice, and then by the grace of God, you yourself will know whether it is right or wrong.
What is the name of the yaga which Nachiketa learned from Yama? Is it still conducted today?
I am so what do you call I should not be surprised. No matter which I say, somebody will ask me a karma kanda question which I cannot answer. So I was the yajna is called Nachiketa's Agni. Now whether it's conducted today or not, I actually don't know.
He was talking about chronology. Could it be that Jnana Kanda came first, then came Karma Kanda?
Oh,
In other terms, Jnana Kanda is the theory and Karma Kanda is the practical aspect of it.
Oh, when did they come? Acha, they did not come. They were always there forever. So they didn't come. They were perceived by different rishis, but the entire lot was given as instruction manual to Brahma by Mahavishnu when he asked him to create, and Brahma said, "How do I create? I don't no idea what to do." You know, like buying a IKEA furniture with all the parts and no instructions. He said, "Give me some instructions." He gave the Veda. So that is the dharma, the gravity that makes the universe be is the Veda. At that point, I don't think it was given in any sequential way.
Perfect. So rest of the two questions are not related to the topic, but are recordings of these classes uploaded in your website? Yes. It is, all of you must access sanskritfromhome.com. So the recordings are available in the Sanskrit from Home website under Upanishad Aloka course. Next one was, is there any write-up of about the lectures? Currently, we are not planning for any write-up of the lectures. Currently, we are planning to finish the class. Later, by the grace of the Guru of Balaji sir, as per his wish, probably this entire lecture series will get published as a book, which we all hope to read and enjoy. So let us wait and pray that these classes finish and this entire series of lecture come out as a book which we all can use.
Yeah, we have to pray that the class is finished. That's a good prayer actually, because right now it seems to be going on forever.
I did not mean like that, sir. What I said is until...
No, of course not, sir. What I meant was that I thought I had divided it into 16 pieces, but in the first 5, I have not covered 5 pieces. And then now I've stopped to tell you a story, and then that story, is a mixture of some things from the Upanishad, some things from other places, and some other things that maybe Swamiji might have told me at some time. So then somebody's asking what is the source of every aspect of the story. So think of it as a movie, then you'll just enjoy the movie. Sources we can figure out later. It is just, you have to really come, Kathopanishad is such an Upanishad, it can just bring tears to your eyes by the mere reading if you imagine what it must have been like to be Nachiketas. And what it must have been like to be Yama, and to be Mrs. Yama, and the bull, and the father. Each one is, each actor has got so much, such a serious role. They are not supporting cast. Each one is just super important. And each word is dripping. And of course, the Upanishad, so I tell you, I'll give you an example. So I told you, for instance, I'm just opening the Upanishad for a moment, just to be able to tell you how, how the Upanishad proceeds. You see, give me 1 second, sorry. I'm sorry, I don't have the Upanishad here with me. I have something else here. So even the Upanishad doesn't actually say that the way he says he asked 3 times. No, it's told very tersely. So sometimes you can read in the commentary, and sometimes you can read in some commentary, and sometimes somebody would have told you something in some lecture. Sometimes you can see it in some other parts. But the best part of any Upanishad is when you have done so much upasana of the Upanishad will speak to you by itself. It regularly happens. It is no miracle. And when the Upanishad speaks to you by itself, that is when you can really, really, really enjoy the Upanishad. Same is to be said of Bhagavad Gita also. So any Upanishad that you see that we discuss over here, more than meaning, etc., Patha of the Upanishad with a lot of Shraddha and Bhakti can get you quite far, assuming you know something, obviously. Okay. Is it all right, sir?
Dhanyawada, sir. These are the questions.
Okay. Hari Om, and I'll see you next time. Jai Shankar.